Okay. And we're live. We're live. We're live. We're live. Hello. Hi, everybody. It is the Shot at an Angle show here on Facebook. It's 7 p.m. It's Wednesday, so it can only be the Shot at an Angle show. And I've got the grand total of no watchers, no viewers. Oh, wonderful. I'm here every week, so I will give it a second and I will start. I'm actually just trying to share my own stream. That's how I'm starting this show. And as you might have already seen, we're talking about how to take great photos with little to no editing. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent for this specific subject. And I'm also going to methodically work through this. It's interesting. It says we've got people viewing, but it says there's no current viewers. Somehow I don't always believe Facebook tells me absolutely everything. So let me just do this, and I'll be with you. I just want to share what I'm doing in my own inimitable way. Yes. Hello. Oh, I've got a viewer. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. It's the Shot at an Angle show. I was about to just kick off. Not causing trouble by any chance, by any stretch of the imagination. Today's show is going to be about take great photos with a little no editing. I'll say at this point, if you get the chance to like, share, comment, say where you're watching this show, and have you watched the show before? I've been doing this for over a year now in many different forms. It started on a Monday, and I'm now doing it on a Wednesday. This is the live show. I'm going to get myself on screen as well, so you can see what I look like. Hello. Yes, I'm going to wave. I can see myself waving there. Wonderful, wonderful. Today's show then. Before I go on, this is the Shot at an Angle show. It's a creative, it's a collective, it's a fun show, it's an understanding place. If you're here to find out information about photography, if you just want to maybe enjoy listening to what I'm talking about, I touch a subject around photography every week on this live show. And my introduction never gets any more succinct. I try to improve it every single time, but it doesn't necessarily always work. I'm here every Wednesday on Facebook, on my Facebook page. So yes, and you really do make the show. You really help make the show with your comments, with whatever as we're going through this. Where are you watching this from? Any observations was that whilst I go through this topic, because a lot of the topics I choose are there to be sort of almost like a little bit divisive. Divisive? Divisive? Is that the right word? Come on, somebody comment. Anyway, I'll get on with the topic in hand, and the topic is that take great photos with little to no editing. So the place I want to start with, start this topic is to talk about what editing is in the first place. The word photoshopping is being bandied around quite a lot. That photoshopping is almost seen as a term as being a negative term and have negative connotations. So in the digital realm of photography, in the era of digital photography, which we're very much in, we haven't had a time that has been so documented as we are right now. I mean, mostly of our food and selfies, but there's so many photographs that have been taken right now, and there's so many ways to edit them. But this is quite a divisive topic. The whole idea of not editing and getting it right in the camera in the first place. So let's quickly talk through literally what editing is. Editing is doing something to the photograph after you've taken it. That could be cropping the image down, so cutting, actually literally cutting the image down. to make a different framing of your image, and it's adjusting the different parameters of your photograph. So in some form of editing software, maybe exposure, highlights, darks. There's so many. I could list many different different ways you can edit a photograph. But is editing itself a new thing? I put a question up on Reddit, and I got a few interesting responses. The link is in the description for all the sources, so go and check that out. I've got all my sources that I've actually, when I did the research for this specific episode, or for this specific show, go and check the resources out. One of the responses I got was along the lines of that when it was analog photography or film photography, there were still multiple ways for photographers to edit photographs. There were ways of using different paints and different solvents to retouch negatives. You could expose different parts of the negative on paper, or do multiple exposures of a single frame to layer images. You can almost layer them on top of each other. So the question they asked were these photographers also painters and chemists and artisans and graphic designers? Were they doing all that as well? So the whole idea of editing has been there since photography was a thing. That actually editing is not a new thing. The thing that I would like to say though is that actually I think editing has come full circle, and because we have so much control over our photographs, we have so much. I think control is probably the best way of putting it. That there's a power in this sort of software. There's a software that you can get now. I use Adobe Lightroom. I'm not sponsored by it. I'm just saying that this is what I've been using for upwards of nearly 10 years, actually. I remember a friend of mine introduced me to Lightroom a long time ago, and I use it to edit. But sometimes I have been known to really over-edit a photograph and then step back, because I like to stick with the original theme that I have of the photograph. So that's when the power of getting it right in the camera comes through. Is that you have this whole idea of, you have this original idea. This whole idea of, I've said many times before, of plan, shoot, and review. So plan what you're capturing, how you'll capture it, and have that final image in mind. When you have this sort of like this scene in front of you, it could be a beautiful landscape, for example. You survey it, you take in the different parts of the view, and you're assimilating that in your mind. It's imagination in a way. And then, because the way your eyes work compared to a camera, your eyesight, generally speaking, your eyes can compensate a lot more for the different lights. So when it comes to a camera, you have to expose for a certain aspect of the shot. I quite often will slightly underexpose my shots, because I know that I get more control in the dark parts and the light parts of my photograph. Then once you've taken that photograph, that's once you've planned it, you take the photograph, obviously, which follows up with that idea, and then the third part, the review part, is to actually just to look at it. If you review it I always recommend to review it on as large scale as possible. In fact, if you can, get them printed to a large size, because there's something quite incredible to look at an image, and you can really start to see what worked and what didn't work. And this is where this whole balance between editing and getting it right in the camera. I think there's a balance here, and I would say that it was maybe a 60-40% balance, or maybe a 70-30% balance between what you do with the camera and how you edit it. I've never been a huge fan of overly using these presets you can get, or preset functions you can get. I mean, I've got a few. I will actually show you some examples of my own editing. I'll show you what I mean. It really can be quite subtle. But I've never been a big fan of filters and presets, because they kind of take something away from that original idea. So yeah, it's a way of thinking, a way of working with your camera to begin with. So you start off with that whole idea of what am I going to shoot, how am I going to shoot it, and think about how editing actually at the end of it, editing is the final gloss on the photo. Now I took a few photos recently. For example, I took this of a group of swans on the Regent's Canal in London, and I just like this image. I just like them, the way that they were following each other. There's a few leading lines. Also, that the artwork, that's not a real heron, by the way. That's artwork on the actual wall. I just like that sort of juxtaposition between real and not, and artistic impression. But I'm going to go through these edits. And what I did was, when I edited this photograph, and I edited this specifically just for this show to kind of highlight what I mean by getting it right in the camera and then just highlighting the different aspects of the photograph. Now, this might not show up because it really will only show up on a larger scale. So it depends on how you're watching this. If you're watching this on your phone, for example, it's not going to show up. But yeah, each stage of this editing process, every time, so that's one edit, that's two edits, that's three edits, that's four edits, and yes, and that's all I did. Now if I just show you, I go back to the original photograph, there is a real subtle difference, and you're probably going to ask me the question, then what was the point in editing it? Exactly. That is a good point. But actually, what I'm doing is I'm just editing the different elements of the photograph and just enhancing what's already there. That's how I see this. Another example of a shot I took recently was of this photograph in this is High Force waterfalls in the North Pennines up in northern England. And again, I had this idea, I had this shot in mind. I followed it through. I wanted to get some sort of scale. It was quite difficult because there was nobody around, and it was, the only person that was around was my wife, and it was just hard to get somebody in the shot. So I just wanted to get this sort of grand scale of this waterfall and the power of it. And again, all I did, these are the edits. That's the third edit, the fourth edit, the fifth edit, and that's the original photograph. So that's the edit, and that's the original photograph. So you can kind of see that there's a little bit there. It's hardly perceptible, and you can almost say that I didn't really need to edit at all, but I was enhancing what I had there, enhancing what I had in the photograph in the first place. Like I said, it's very, 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 very easy to actually use filters and use this editing software to really sort of like push your photograph and actually rely on it too heavily. Maybe that's the way of thinking about it, is to try not to rely on your editing software too much and get it right in the camera. I use an app which I've got on my phone. The app is actually a free Lightmeet app which I've got on Amazon on Android, and it allows me to do things like I can check the white balance, for example, or I can set the white balance up, or I can actually get a different sensor meter reading. It just means that I've got a little bit of an extra tool which when I'm photographing, I can really use that to the best of my ability. I can use that to really get that photograph right in the first place. There is, however, there's a conclusion to this whole thing, really. This whole idea of getting it right in the camera. You could be seeing this as something, you're maybe putting a bit more too much pressure on yourself, and this is me speaking to myself as well. But maybe it's an ethos thing. That's how I like to see this. One of the I put it put this question up on Reddit. I think I might have mentioned that earlier. And there was one photographer, and I just really like this guy's ethos, and I like this whole idea. And there's a really good reason why he does this. So when they photograph, they they capture what they see and they don't edit They don't edit at all, which is interesting. So they're getting it right in the first place. But the reason why that is because it's almost like they give the photographs directly to them without, you know, they basically say, you go off and do your own thing now with these photographs. These are now your photographs. This is my photograph. These are no longer mine. I'm giving them to you. And in a way, you can probably think of that's not a great way of running a business, but actually, you know, what you really do, what is really providing, or they are really providing, is a service for somebody who maybe can't afford the prints, the high quality prints, but actually to still want the prints themselves, but they can have control over it. They can basically, I mean, what they do is they actually remove all the, imagine they're doing portrait photography, because what they're saying is they remove all the closed eyes and the blurred ones, and then they give the card to the end user. You know, they give the SD card and tell them to print where they want to print it. And what it means is they focus entirely, no pun intended, they focus entirely on the photograph, the photography, rather than the edit. And I like that because that's a great ethos. But that's really what I'm getting at here, is to really concentrate on the photography part of it, not the editing. The editing is there just to enhance what you've got, what you've taken. I'm sure that some people are going to be saying, no, I don't agree with that entirely. Well, if you don't agree with it, comment on this video and say why you don't agree with it. But I think in conclusion, there is still a balance to all of this, and I still think that I would say that you know, the camera is the most important part. So if you're going for the balance, it's more weighted towards the camera. 60% the camera, 40% editing, or even 70 to 80, if not more. I've come to the conclusion that I want to spend as much time behind the camera as I want to spend more time behind the camera than I do in front of a screen. I don't want to spend hours editing, and that's definitely, but that goes into this person's ethos. So yeah, editing in Photoshop is not a new thing. You know, it's not a new thing. That's one conclusion we can definitely draw, and it's not the negative it can be seen to be, though it definitely is utilised, especially within certain genres of photography. But getting it right in the camera doesn't mean no editing at all. And getting it right is quite a subjective thing. We could say that it's, you know, you make the camera do as much work as possible. I personally see editing as a way of enhancing what I've captured, and bring out features in that scene or subject you wanted to highlight. And I go back to this whole thing of, you know, your eyes work differently to your camera. Your camera has to sort of do maybe just one thing, whereas your eyes can do several things at once. So the conclusion to this whole thing is really, for me, is to get you to think about this in the first place, you know, to get you to think about editing. The one thing is for certain when it comes to editing, one thing you can't change in editing, not successfully anyway, is to make your photographs sharper. If it's out of focus, it's out of focus. You can't bring it back. And I think that if the photograph is not following the rules, or not actually a good photograph, it's very hard to rescue that. Like I said, if it's out of focus, if the horizon is wonky for some reason, not on a purpose, it's not straight, you can't really rescue that. You can in some respects, but if it's a bad photograph, editing will not make it any better, and definitely not turning it black and white, because that's what I find a lot of people do, is that they don't like the photograph, so they'll turn it black and white. But yeah, that's it. I'm talking today about this whole idea of, if you have only just joined us, and oh, I've got 2 likes. Thanks very much. Who's liked the stream? Because I can only see one person viewing, and I don't always believe what Facebook tells me. Well, that's very kind of you. Thanks very much for liking the video. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. yeah, I'm talking through this whole idea of getting it right in the camera and maybe not doing so much editing. I've got 3 likes. What is going on here? That's the best, that's in stream. That's the best I've ever had. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. This now, I know Stuart is still watching, so I've kind of stolen his idea here. So when it comes to this show, and is it showing? Yes, it is. I always can't figure this out. This show is free for you to watch every week. More content will be coming soon. That's all I will say. This live show goes out every week, but I'm going to be building up a body of material that's going to go potentially onto another platform as well, onto YouTube. It might also be here on Facebook as well. I will see how it goes, but it's free to watch on all these platforms, but it is not free to create. Yes, Stu, I have stolen your idea. But, that's what collaborations are all about, aren't they? Anyway, you can support me through Buy Me a Coffee. 3 people have done that already, and I appreciate all those people who have actually already helped me. The money initially will be going to help promote this show. That's really what I've been using it for. I've been using it to boost my posts on Facebook to reach a bigger audience. But yes, if you'd like to, go and check out Buy Me a Coffee. And as always, if you buy me a coffee, and I've highlighted that already, look at that. That's how professional I am. If you buy me a coffee and we get to meet face to face, I'll buy you a real coffee or a drink of your choice. As long as it's not too expensive. Today's challenge, as always, I'm going to... I want to get some reaction to this challenge, because so far I've had nobody react to it at all. So, 1 lens challenge. Next time you're out, next time you head out, just take 1 lens with you and see how you get on. Thanks very much for watching. Thank you. We're coming to the end of the show. Is there anything you'd like to ask me? Oh, you stole it from Mike Club. So, okay, so, right. Brilliant. Absolutely love it. Because the Mike Club is, this is Stuart's comment. Stuart and I have been collaborating for years, and we do a podcast together. Lots of interesting things going on with that at the moment. And we're a part of another group called the Mike Club, and it's all very complicated. You stole it from Mike Club. I did not know that. Always quote your sources. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. The next week, I'm going to go on a little bit of on a completely different tangent. It's going to be a lot more. I feel it's going to be a lot more less divisive. So next week's subject is take your camera out for a walk. The background photograph there, Stuart, by the way, is Hebden Bridge Railway Station up in I think Lancashire, I think, isn't it? Was it Yorkshire? It's kind of on the cusp. But yeah, next week's topic is going to be take your camera out for a walk, and how that can really get you out there with your camera. I think we can often not give ourselves enough permission to go out photographing. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to give you loads of ideas. That's really what I'm here for. For you to listen to me for about 25 minutes talking about photography. And yes, that's it. I'm still enjoying this new place with all these books and records behind me. All this here. And he likes my t-shirt as well. Quality material as ever, William. Right. That's me done. Thanks for everybody who has commented today. Thanks for everybody who has watched today. Thanks for everybody who's liked this. And maybe you would like to follow me as well. I really would like to get to 10,000 followers. At the moment I'm at 312, so I'm a little bit away from that. A little bit off of that. But anyway, Shot at an Angle show here every week, 7 p.m. Thanks very much for being with me, and I shall see you next week.